everybody. It's Stewart and Swerdlow.
And Janet Swerdlow.
And this is the Expansions News Podcast for the last week of January 2015. And it's somebody's birthday this week.
I'm so excited.
I know. I just can't imagine that I'm married to someone that old.
Well, think how old you are.
You know, being a famous, youthful, international movie star, I have to keep up appearances. And
You're so lucky that I look like I'm 20.
Yes. Of course, it's from a great distance. If I looked very closely, I could see all the defects and
that's nice.
all
Thank
of that
you.
going on.
It makes me feel so warm and fuzzy inside.
Well, you should get a doctor to check that out then. Anyway, there is some interesting news. We don't have a lot today, but I will tell you what I do have. And one of the important things is the death of Saudi King Abdullah bin Abdulaziz, who was 90 years old.
Say that 10 times fast.
No, and he died in a hospital after suffering from pneumonia. His brother, King Salman, who's 79, has inherited the throne. And, of course, conducted the funeral services. They buried him really quick, make sure he can get up.
Well, they claim that they put him in an unmarked, very plain grave.
Yeah.
That was very odd, I thought.
No, Muslims and Jews do things like this because they don't glorify the body.
Yeah, but people who are out to subvert them are going to be causing trouble.
I'm sure that no one will get near it.
Yeah.
Anyway, here's an interesting fact about it. Buckingham Palace lowered the Union Jack at half-mast, and Prince Charles will visit Saudi Arabia to pay respects. Now, why would the British people lower the flags on honor of a Saudi Arabian king? Very interesting. But here's some news about his brother, the new king, King Salman. He apparently funded the Mujahideen fighting against the Soviets in Afghanistan. He is believed to be suffering from Alzheimer's and dementia. That's a good leader. That means someone's going to be telling him what to do. And he has 13 children. People say, I have a lot of kids. This guy has 13 children and 3 wives since 1955. His second son, Prince Sultan bin Salman, was the first Muslim in outer space.
Really? I didn't know that. I didn't even know they had any Muslims in outer
Well, he
space.
was in the U.S. He was an astronaut in the U.S.
That's allowed,
program.
huh?
Apparently. And he's apparently more conservative than his brother. But I have an interesting story. I think I told you about this story about me and, at the time, Prince Abdullah, before he was king. It's in, I believe, my Montauk Alien Connection book. I was traveling in 1975 from New York to Paris on TWA, the same flight that was blown up years later. And when I got on the way to Paris, I had to fill out a form to enter into, because there was no EU at the time. And he asked me, he sat next to me in the plane.
Seriously?
Yes.
You didn't tell me this.
I did so tell you. And he actually asked me to help him fill out his form because he couldn't read the French or English.
I don't remember.
So I helped him, but I got in trouble.
Why?
Because after that, I flew from Paris to Tel Aviv, and that's when the plane was pulled out to the runway. We were told to put our shades up.
Tell me that.
And then when we got, I was interrogated in a van with no windows at gunpoint by Israeli police or military, asking me if he had given me anything or if I had told him it.
That.
Yeah, so that's in my book. So.
But where were his bodyguards? Why did he ask you?
He was only a prince in those days.
Well, that's true. They have a lot of princes.
Yeah, I guess he was no big deal back then, but that was my story with now the dead King Abdullah. Now, still in the Middle East, we have seen that on all the major news services, that video that ISIS made with the 2 Japanese hostages. But apparently, the film is staged because it says that it was doctored by the militants. It shows the hostages were filmed in 2 separate locations and then merged together in the film. And also that they had asked for $200 million in ransom. By the way, as of today, they said 1 hostage was killed. And it says that they were wearing different shades of orange jumpsuits, so they were not from the same stock, supposedly. And it said that the shadows on their shoulders were in opposite directions, meaning the light was coming from different directions. and that when the wind was blowing, their outfits or the robes from Jihadi John was blowing at different times, like one
right.
would blow. So obviously it was all done as a staged event for public consumption, as were all of the execution films. And so we wonder then, were they really executed? If not, where are they, and what's going on, and who's staging it? But we might see a little. I'll get to another story a little bit later, and you'll kind of curious about what's going on.
The comment on this is, anything that the militants really do, they show you. And so, they unfortunately we have seen a lot of bloodshed where they've actually been shooting people at gunpoint and so forth into rivers. They never show the
actually only after,
exactly.
and there's never blood. And also remember that the Jihadi John, who's in all of them, he's British.
Yes.
So keep that in mind when I get to a story in a little bit.
All right.
Now, there is a little planet out there in the asteroid belt called Ceres, which is a dwarf planet, and apparently NASA camera on the spacecraft has seen what they call an alien mark as the probe prepares to get closer to orbit of Ceres. And of course NASA says one theory is that it's a frozen pool of ice at the bottom of a crater which is clear enough to reflect sunlight.
Is there sunlight?
Well, next time I go out there I'll let you know.
Look.
And it's a dwarf planet, as I mentioned, between Mars and Jupiter. Now, NASA says we can confirm that there is something on Ceres that reflects more sunlight, but what it is remains a mystery. That's from the chief mission director, engineer at the mission. And in January, past month, they found water gushing from the surface at the rate of 6 kilograms per second. So what's water doing? Frozen out there in space, supposedly, right?
Doesn't make sense.
It means that, well, I'll tell you my theory in a minute. But scientists said that Ceres is very similar to Jupiter's moon Europa and Saturn's moon Enceladus. Sounds like a dish we should get at the Mexican restaurant. I shall have some enchiladas with my meal, please.
So I was thinking,
and
sounds delicious.
that it possibly harboring life. Well, I think that Ceres is actually an artificial probe. And that's why it's because they found water gushing in our moon, plus this one, something's going on out there. Now back to Britain.
Okay,
I just needed to get away from the Earth for a moment, then I come back to Earth. But did you know that they've uncovered a letter that former Prime Minister Tony Blair of Britain wrote to Muammar Gaddafi in Libya when he was the dictator there? And they're calling it now a groveling letter. And it was written on official Downing Street headed paper. And Tony Blair said he was disappointed at the time that the courts blocked deportation of Libyan dissidents back to Libya, where they would have been tortured and executed. So Tony Blair wanted that to happen, and the British government prevented it. And he thanked Muammar Gaddafi for Libya's excellent cooperation in an attempt to return the exiles. And the Prime Minister, Tony Blair, told the dictator he was very disappointed that Britain's courts had blocked the deportation of the 5 Libyan dissidents because the British government thought they would be mistreated. And the letter goes on from Tony Blair to Muammar, saying he thanked him personally for Libya's excellent cooperation in the controversial attempt to return the political exiles to their ruthless regime. Well, he didn't say ruthless regime. And of course, according to this article, it questions the extent of the Labour government's involvement in the abuse of terrorist suspects and fuels speculation that the scandal went right down to Downing Street, which is their White House. Now, it was a 2-page letter, and it was written April 26, 2007, and it also goes on to say, "Dear Muammar, I trust you and your family are well." And then he wrote, "With regret, I should let you know that the British government has not been successful in its recent court case here involving deportation to Libya. I am very disappointed at the court's decision." Isn't he lovely, Tony Blair? Yes. He said, "I believe it is essential that this decision is not allowed to undermine the effective bilateral cooperation which has developed between the United Kingdom and Libya in recent years." Interesting. And he signs it, Best wishes, yours ever, Tony.
Now, what are those implications?
Well, according to this, to a Liberal Democrat MP, Norman Baker, he says, he says, ghastly, of course. This is ghastly. The more revelations that come out about Tony Blair's premiership, the more distasteful it seems. He seems to have no regard for basic human rights, civil values, or morality. Oh, how unusual.
Yeah, but I mean, they're all just puppets. This is what I don't understand.
And the MP goes on to say, how can he live with himself? I am ashamed that the UK could apologize for not sending people to a country where they would almost certainly be imprisoned and tortured. Well, we also know, subsequent to Mr. Blair's prime ministership, he is now in charge of installing the New World Religion. And seems to be very close amount of cooperation with the US and UK on one side and the Arab leaders on the other side. Why do you think?
I don't know.
Well, maybe they're all descended from Sumer.
Ah, that makes sense.
Maybe they're all part of that reptilian religion that's about to be imposed on the earth.
That's possible. Do you think then that what does that have to do with the fellow who's doing the beheading who's British?
Well, that's my point. So apparently Britain has something to do with all this torture and terrorism, and maybe funds secretly ISIS.
That, of course, would not surprise me.
And there was one other, a couple of other interesting stories. I don't have the links here with me. A funny story. Apparently, Queen Elizabeth had either visited Saudi Arabia at one point and drove King Abdullah around and terrified him.
Now, they've said that story about her before in
Really?
Yeah. Not with him specifically, but
she's not amused.
They claim that she actually drives these vehicles
She's,
around.
I am a good driver. Yes. Well, she probably ships into her reptilian self.
She's like 90, isn't she?
No, she's 86 or something like
getting
this.
Close.
But, 8,600 maybe.
Maybe.
But and another story, again, I don't have the link, but as the viewers may know, the Congress of the United States has invited Prime Minister of Israel, Netanyahu, to speak to them about Iran, undermining Obama's decisions to make peace with them, and also not asking Obama's permission. So Obama is very angry, and he will not see Netanyahu when he comes to the United States.
So maybe there are two factions or three factions that are starting to divide at the top. Do you think?
It goes back to what I've said for many, many weeks now, and months, that there are factions within factions, and I think there's some Kuiper Belt infiltration, and also they're trying to undermine what the Illuminati are doing.
All right, and I have just a couple of comments. I don't actually have articles this time, but I have a couple of comments, because something's happening in the news, and again, I'm not exactly sure why, but I'm observing. And that happens to be, it starts out with our own model, Kate Upton. Remember, here's from St. Joseph, Michigan.
Right from here.
That's right. And of course, she was the swimsuit model of the year for a couple of years in a row.
She's always wanted me to appear with her, and I have said no. Yeah.
But she has been run down quite a bit and disparaged for her voluptuous figure.
Yeah.
Because most models are extremely thin.
Well, she's kind of thin.
No, she's not. She's very voluptuous.
Really?
Yes, and she's been disparaged for that quite a bit. And I think it's interesting that she's being held in the public eye. Now, of course, we also know that there is a lot of controversy over how thin models have been and the photoshopping through the recent years, right? So I've been observing, as I do, just these things. Now I was thinking about this today because there is a supposedly controversial ad that they're not sure whether or not they will play for the Super Bowl by Carl Jr.'s, the hamburger chain. And it shows another voluptuous model who is very similar in appearance to Kate Upton, and myself, I could practically not tell them apart. And this woman is supposedly, it acts like she's naked as she's walking through a public market, and then in the end she's taking a big bite of a Carl's Jr. hamburger, and then we just revealed she has practically nothing on top and a little tiny skimpy thing on the bottom. But again, she's very voluptuous. And then I was thinking, now they're doing this thing with Miley Cyrus and the bottoms of women, the twerking that's all over the place.
And Kardashian.
All that stuff, right.
Yeah.
It's all about now big bottoms. And they're also
it's all about the base.
It's all about the base, and they're moving into the top as well. So they're kind of juggling, and I was thinking about all the plastic surgery with women to enlarge their breasts through the years. It didn't used to be that. It used to be whatever you were. And then they also show the models like Marilyn Monroe way back when, what used to be considered sexy, and they had also voluptuous figures. Then we went to this little tiny, stick figure woman. And now we're going back to the voluptuousness. So I was thinking, this may have something to do with the New World religion coming in, and again, bringing out...
So that's the mother goddess thing.
Yes, absolutely. About the fertility, the lower part of the woman is what gives birth, the upper part is the nurturing breast, whereas before we were taking that away, and in the meantime they've managed to bring in some androgyny. They've taken the men and they kind of dress them up like women, like especially in the modeling industry.
Yeah, I just read a thing today that in the near future, actually this year, the trend is going to be for male makeup.
Yeah.
And special kind of clothes.
Yeah.
Like,
They're also kind of doing that with the fingernails already. With the the men are getting the pedicures. They're putting
mine
on
are just perfect the way they are.
The pale polish. Now they're starting to put in things. So like I said, they're kind of twisting things around again. But I think it's something to watch. I thought that was interesting.
Yeah, I never needed an enhancement. I was just naturally like this.
Yeah,
so I never needed to have my implants or anything.
Yeah, you're just naturally handsome. What can we say?
Yeah, and actually you didn't need any. You don't have a big booty.
I don't like those slang words.
No, you don't like that.
No.
All right, so we'll delete that from the.
Yeah, right.
The video.
You didn't hear that.
You didn't hear that from me.
Yeah. Anyway, I want to be sure and mention that your film,
Yep.
Montauk Chronicles, won the Best Feature Documentary at the Philip K. Dick Award. It was a very big deal.
I know I'm going to get an Academy Award.
It's pretty amazing. You got mentioned on Huffington Post.
I did.
Well, the movie did.
Oh.
And you're in the movie, so kind of you did. So that's a start. So anyway, we appreciate Huffington Post's support of the Montauk Chronicles movie and Christopher Garetano's efforts because he has put his heart and soul into this for many years and it's finally out officially.
And it really is a good film.
Yeah.
I really say I liked the first one.
Yeah.
But this was even better.
Even better, wow.
Yeah.
Right, and then...
rumor has it that I've been asked to do a series of
there may
films.
be more coming up, so continue to watch the website. You just never know what's going to happen.
And not just here, but across the ocean, as you're going to announce, aren't you?
Well, we can announce
There
that.
you go. I wrote it down for you.
You did make sure.
Surprise for me.
Well, you're in the process of doing some filming in the Czech Republic by a very famous documentarist over there. It's for a
TV person,
and TV personality, and so we're not sure when that's going to be available and released, but it's going to be started. So we have that coming up, and of course we have a lot of things happening. In summer of 2016, we have our Bosnia Pyramid and Spiritual Sites Tour. So that's going to be amazing. We have in October of this year, 2015, Hidden History and Mysteries, our annual conference, which will bring in as well Dr. Osmanagic, the discoverer of the Bosnian pyramids, and Mary Sutherland, who is a paranormal researcher.
Very, very important researcher.
And she gives a lot of tours in her area, and she also has written several books about Burlington, Wisconsin.
And the whole area around the Great Lakes.
Yes, and she's also exploring pyramids in the Great Lakes, and her research is excellent, so look her up online, please. Then we have, in August, we have a radionics seminar workshop that we're putting together right now, so watch for those announcements. In April, we have a lot of things happening. We have our
at the end of the month.
At the end of the month, our annual healing conference, Addicted to Addictions, Get Hooked on Health Instead. That will be here in St. Joseph, Michigan. Then in Pennsylvania, you're going to be speaking with Laura Eisenhower and amongst a bunch of other people at a conference called Free Your Mind. And that is April, I think, the
10, 11, 12.
Something like that.
My lecture is the 11th.
The 11th, Saturday night, the 11th. You will also be going to Taipei.
Yeah, but don't forget the discount that they put.
Oh, yes. If they put expansions in, when you get your ticket, you get $20 off. So we want to be sure that you get your discount. Then you'll be in Taipei, Japan, participating.
Taiwan.
I'm sorry, Taipei, Taiwan.
The Japanese used to want it to be part of Japan.
They're not going to be happy if I say that, but there'll be a lot of Japanese there. That was what I had intended to say.
Yes, they'll all come to see me.
On a spiritual tour there, and also you'll be doing the lecture and personal consultations. You will be in Vienna, Austria in March, correct? Doing personal consultations and a lecture.
Yeah.
You will be in
Wrocław.
Poland, where you'll also be doing personal consultations and a lecture.
And also, right after that, I'm going to do a small documentary at Auschwitz concentration camp.
You are?
Yes.
Oh, lots of things that I never know until we're here. And then, of course, we have our webinars coming up. So we have March, we have the Human animal mind, which most people don't understand how the Illuminati global handlers use that against them. We're going to be exploring that. In February, we have our fasting and detoxification, 2 webinars, including a 3-day group fast, which has been very popular in the past.
I'm going to miss that.
Yeah, I know you're upset. And then in January, coming up actually this week, we have our cult and abusive relationship recovery webinar. And that, we have a few spots left. So if you're interested, sign up on that one because it's amazing. You don't understand how easy it is to move from abusive relationships into cult relationships, how to get out of that. And we have a lot of people that come to us who have actually been involved in these types of things that need help getting out and understanding their thoughts and feelings and coming to terms with what they quote unquote have done. So we do work with a lot of people. And of course we have also been through abusive relationships ourselves. And anyway, it's going to be a good webinar. So the webinars are always very interesting.
Yeah.
Anything else you can think of?
I think that's
a lot.
for now. Yeah.
That's a lot.
Yeah.
All right. So with that said, we want to tell you that we had a great January class.
It was very good.
In fact, like it happens every year, people are saying, "Oh, we wished we would have come." They're already calling Patricia and getting on their list for next year.
I know.
So we do have a list started, and it is a smaller class. So if you're interested, please phone Patricia or email her customersupport@expansions.com. You can Skype her, but get a hold of her and get your name on the list. If you want to start payment plans, she can help you with that as well. So with that said, I think we are just about ready to start February.
Yeah, next week.
Very soon.
Well, that's all for now then.
So thank you very much for joining us.
I'll see you next time. Bye.
Bye.